We'd like to welcome every individual to Voices of Integrity podcast and the PB Church. And always come early, always stay late, because that's where the really interesting stuff happens. You know, as we always say, this isn't a substitute. This isn't replacing your current church. If you don't go to church, for sure, if you do go to some other church, that's fine. Keep going to that church. This is like, this is like 30 minutes. If it goes beyond 30 minutes, it's a gift from you to me to you, and us to one another. And so this one's been a, interesting one in preparing for. And so I don't know what to tell you, but your mind is probably going to be overwhelmed. Um, it's going to be overwhelmed. So sleep on it. Look for, what resonates with you, what pieces are going to connect with you. So here we go. So this is accumulation of over 40 years. And it's like in my sleep last night, like, I don't know, it kind of all came together. When I woke up this morning, it's like, oh, this all came together. But when I tried to put it together into words and pictures and slides, I don't know. I'm like, yeah, they're going to get overwhelmed, but maybe you won't. I don't know. I guess we'll just dive in, right? So let's dive in and see. You can, pause me if you want. So what's radical change? Most of the time when we get married, that's radical change, right? Like everything changes. What's holding us back from our deepest heart's desires. And so when we look at in the quantum world, like quantum physics, quantum computing, quantum everything, Tom Coons, he says there's like, if you want something in life, what do you really want? Our oldest son loved Jack Sparrow and Pirates of the Caribbean. Dad was not nearly as enthralled with him but he had a compass that didn't work. And once my son said, "Do you know what that means?" And I'm like, "No." And he says, "It points to what his heart's desires were." And I'm like, "Huh, that's interesting. So what do you want?" Tom says, "Look at the obstacles, look at the sacrifices, make the decision, and then do it. Count the cost." Like the Bible says, count the cost of building the tower before you get started, because if you don't, you're going to get it halfway done and then people are going to walk by and mock you. And so what we discovered in going through this, is we discovered that there's actually 5 levels of want. And so level 1 want, which seems to be most people in the world, is I want it if no work, sacrifice, or risk is required by myself or those around me. Level 2 want is I want it, and yeah, I'll do a little work. Level 3 is I want it. You know what? I'm willing to do hard work. I am. Level 4 is I want it. I'm willing to do the required work, make the required sacrifice, and take the required risk. And then level 5, I want it and will have it regardless of what is required. It's like my life vision, my why. Like, I'll give my life for it. I think at the heart level, like at the soul level, um, I think that's what we all want. Like, we all want to go ahead and live a significant life. That's what we want. And so when you look at level of risk and level of work, so level, 1 is no work, no risk. Level 2 and level 3 and level 4 and level 5, that's level of sacrifice. This is your vision. Like Alan Stein said to me, he said, you know, you've discovered your life vision when you hate it, you despise it, you try to run from it, and you can't escape it. It pursues you relentlessly. How many people you just have to do it? Like in Ford versus Ferrari, you know, where he gets up and he says, "My daddy said, A man who loves what he does is the luckiest man in the world because he'll never work a day in his life. But there are some, dang, I don't know if they're lucky or not. There's something they have to do, something that will drive them clean out of their mind if they don't do it. So it's weird when you have that, when you discover that. It's like other people get jealous of you because it doesn't matter what hits you. It's like you're impenetrable and you can have the worst thing, worse. It looks from the outside like there's no way that person can be happy, but they are because, you know, they are. And so, you know, this is what's called the Johari window. Fascinating. And so this is, there's two quadrants: known to self, not known to self; known to others, not known to others. So the first area, quadrant one, is open area. This is something that everybody knows about us. We know about ourselves, and it's the open area. This is the hidden. We know about ourselves. These are certain things that we know about ourselves, but other people don't know about us. This is, where it's not known to self, and it's not known to self, but others know it. This is where I joke and I say, yeah, I'm a social autism. I mean, it's really not a joke to joke about your disability, but I tell people, yeah, I think if somebody's stupid, that I should go ahead and tell them they're stupid, and I think they're going to hug me, and then I think all their friends are going to hug me too, because all their friends know it. I mean, it's fascinating to see somebody try to hide something and everybody knows it. Like everybody knows it. And then there's, unknown. It's not known to self and it's not known to other people. So you know, pretty interesting, on this where people feel like they're imposters. And the reason they feel that way is because they are. And this is where it gets a little bit gonky here. So this is where it's going to get a little gonky here. So this is 4 levels of conflict. We won't go into this, but this here is 6 steps to overcoming blindness from Pastor James McDonald from John chapter 9. Clean your glasses. Narrow thinking blurs our vision. Get involved. Involvement opens our eyes. Close your mouth. Our ceaseless talking prevents us from seeing. Number 4 is open your mind. Analysis paralysis blinds us. Stand your story. Seek the truth and always make it stick. Humble your heart. We often need others to help us to see. So this is, this is frequencies. And there's stories behind each one of these. Are the craziest, coolest stories. But right here, you'll see this is what's called a fractal. A fractal is something in nature, like a snowflake, where it's a pattern that reproduces, like a snowflake. It's a pattern. It reproduces it. This is up and going down. So this is moving forward, growing, changing. Like Baptists go ahead and are really big into, when you go ahead and get saved, then the Holy Spirit enters your life and you change forever. But if the Holy Spirit's in your life, aren't you changing forever? Like, aren't you changing every day? Like, is there a metamorphosis? Often there's not. And then you slide down. So you go up and then you slide down. But so I don't know, discovered this 10 years ago, 15 years ago. Fascinating story. Won't go into that. But it's like at the top here, you can't see it until you do a microscope and you look in and you see there's a gap here. So for the last couple of weeks, I've been working. What's this gap? It's invisible. I don't know what's there. And so here, when we have a problem, Einstein said you can never solve the problem on the level it was created. What does that mean? It means that we as human beings create problems based on how we think. So we're not going to go ahead and be able to solve the problem on the level it was created. So, Bonhoeffer's, we've gone through that one in the past, and that like groups of people come together and they get stuck. They get stuck right here at the top. And then they start to slide down slowly. like the illusion that we care about other people when maybe not so much. And so when we have a challenge, a problem in our life, we could go over, under, left, right, blow it up, tear down some way, somehow we're going to make a break. The bigger the wall, thicker the wall, the harder it is to make the breakthrough. But what people often do is they get locked in and they dig into their own position, their own position, and they come up with, all kinds of reasons explaining all things. It's weird. I mean, it's just strange. The Bible is clear. Let your yea be yea and your nay, nay. I mean, it's not like when you say you're going to do something, you do something. Like it's not complicated, but it's not yay with an explanation or nay with an explanation. But people are coming up with explanations as to why they don't do things. Edward Rivera, was talking to him, and I said, just pastors, just man, they drive me crazy. Oh, they just irritate me. So I do a lot of volunteer and help pastors, and coaching them. Don't charge them a dime. I mean, not a dime. Help them out. It's, it's like why? And I said they don't have integrity. They lack. He says, "What do you mean?" I said, "They say they're going to do things. They don't do things." He says, "Well, we're all human." like it's just fascinating on how. Well, you know what? There's a reason why they get up and they talk about being sinners. Like even my dad. Like he talked about how he was no better than a worm, and he was a pastor his whole life. And but did he really believe that? Did he really internalize that? I don't know. It's not a judgment, it's an observation. I had one guy that I agreed to coach, and if it was business, it would have been like 30, 40,000. But I never even thought. I said, my only my only my only expectation vow, like you're gonna commit. This is a vow, like a marriage vow. It's like, okay. And I said that you meet with me for 30 minutes a month for, 30 minutes a month for a year. You don't quit. He says, I agree. I commit. I vow. 3 months into it, he just says, yeah, I'm not going to continue. I'm like, what? He's like, yeah, the Holy Spirit is leading me to spend more time with my wife and in the Bible. And it's just fascinating on how Christians, especially pastors, you say, but Mark, this is PB. Some call this the PB, like the pastors, bishops. Nobody will tell pastors and bishops. Nobody will tell the spiritual people the truth. They just won't. Like even like Terry Thompson with Small Church USA. Does he tell them the truth, or does he tell them how tough they have it? I don't know. I haven't gone through it. There's not a judgment. It's just questions. Like, can you ask questions? Evidently not so much. Like they get really ticked. Like, why is it so hard? Like, why is there so many mental health issues in pastors? I don't know. It's just strange. Anyways, let's get back on it. All right. But
And
here,
why do Christians use the Bible as an excuse?
Bible, prayer, biggest procrastinator. Again, there's all these stories from decades of experience. And it's like, so what holds us back, what holds us back is you have this little gap here. So you get up here and there's this gap, and it requires faith to make the jump. And so what moves us forward is faith, see, understand, do, humility, great stewardship, contentment, self-discipline, perspective, and strong life vision. What holds us back is fear. Pastors don't understand. It's weird. I feel bad. I feel bad for pastors and I feel bad for the congregation. Pastors get up there and talk about faith and all this. You can try to get a pastor on a podcast. Who's going to be there? Who we're going to talk about? What's going to be the agenda? I mean, it's like, can you have faith for 30 minutes to have a honest conversation? They can't. And they've got their whole congregation tricked and fooled into thinking that they're these amazing men, strong, confident. They're not. They're just not. I mean, they'll get up and say, I'm not confident, this and this, but they really believe. What's worse, though, is on how they fool themselves. So fear, do not see, lack understanding, do not do, pride, poor stewardship, lust of the eyes, lust of the flesh, low morale, lukewarm. But there's more. There's a whole lot more. So it's like, okay, how do we like not talk the truth, but see the truth and then do the truth? And what about when values conflict? Like there's amiable personalities out there, which, majority of pastors are going to be amiable analytics. And so it's like an amiable once told me, it's like, I'm like, you just lied to that person. That's not really, and they're like, well, no, I was being nice. And I'm like, how is lying being nice? And then you don't have any of these questions. A lot of this was triggered by Your Voice in My Headset podcast. Nora Fry and myself writing a book on Your Voice in My Headset. It's about friendship. And my wife, Anna, she said she read this in Facebook. When trauma gets triggered, you don't act your age, you act the age your wound was created. Think of it this way. Your mind is a house, and somewhere in that house there is a locked room that you haven't opened for years. Something happened in that room when you were 8, 14, the younger version of you. Something happened in that room. So what you did was turn off the lights, shut the door, and kept living in the rest of the house, but the room doesn't disappear, it just waits. The moment something enters into your mind, it sounds like that old fear. That door comes barreling open, and all of a sudden, you are right back at the age that hurt happened. And that's why you shut down. That's why you panic. That's why you get defensive, because it's never today's version of you reacting. It's still the younger version of you trapped in that room that never got to finish the story. But here's the thing. True healing is not pretending that room doesn't exist. It's walking back in that room, turning on the lights and making sure the younger version of you finally feels safe is what the original was. I think it should be strong, not feel strong, be strong. Because when you do that, you stop reacting as that younger version of you, and your reactions finally start to grow up with you. And when you stop acting like that entire room doesn't exist, you take your entire house back. So here you have, fear, there's resistance, faith, there's acceptance, actions, results. And there's the Mach 1 principle where we make a dimensional breakthrough. There's the foxhole principle where we're in the most dangerous place, but that's where we stay. We get stuck there. This is, this is where we go ahead and the magic atomic ball principle. And so there's pain in our life. Somebody abused us sexually, emotionally, mentally, physically, relationally, spiritually. That there's pain, and that is energy. It's not good or bad. What happened to us seems bad, but could it be really good? Like, can we take that negative situation? And so when hurt, pain, abuse enters into our life, it produces energy. That energy is neither good or bad inherently because of the terrible thing that has happened. We associate this new energy with being bad, but it doesn't have to be. It's our choice. Those who make great choices daily to accept that energy and turn it into positive energy, we will have amazingly good things happen to our lives and the lives of others. Those who make poor, weak choices will have that energy turn negative energy, and it will probably destroy them and those around them. It's our choice. So, good choices take that energy and turn it into good energy. The bad choices turn it into bad energy. The crab in the bucket principle we discovered when Roseanne and I and our 7 kids went out to the Lakota Indian Reservation in South Dakota, poorest county in all of the United States. There's a high statistical probability if your wife, your daughter, your granddaughter gets arrested by the police that they're going to rape her. That's how serious. It's just crazy. It's just absolutely crazy. And the Lakota chief, he said to me, he says, Mark, we Lakota Indians are like crabs in a bucket. I said, what does that mean? He says, you know, we're crabs and we're stuck in our poverty. Like when one of us tries to get out, all the other crabs pull us back in. That's Bonhoeffer. That's what he's saying too. And it's not just Lakota Indian Reservation, and it's just not financial poverty. It's emotional, relational, spiritual. There's churches that have Christian schools. It's not a judgment against Christian schools. It's not. Although I went to a Christian school, I got offered drugs more at the Christian school than I did at the public school when I was in high school. But I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying, do you know what you're doing? Do you understand what you're doing? What you're doing is you're carving out something to go ahead, and so your good kids can go ahead and marry somebody else's good kids, and you can have a bunch of good kids, and you can be really proud. So you're pouring all this time and money and resources into your own children. Is that idolatry? I don't know. I don't. But the point isn't. The point. What's the point? The point is that we can ask questions. And that's the thing I love about PB Church is that we can ask questions. And so the goal is to go ahead and get that one crab to get out of that bucket. And that one crab helps three other crabs, and those three other crabs help three other crabs. That's the goal. So in this dimensional thinking, there's let's leave it at that for today. Let's leave it at that for today. And so I think it's the hurt. I think that we're all gonna get hurt. The question is, are we gonna turn it into something good or not? When I was 19, I had hurt that I'd never felt before, the pain I'd never felt ever in my life. And it happened, kept getting worse and worse until I was 22. And I went into a Christian counselor. And after a few months, and Rosanna and I were in college, so we're just poor college students. We couldn't afford a counseling. It was way too expensive. And we just couldn't. And so after a couple months of this and it's not getting better, I said to the counselor, I said, hey, I can't, we're poor college students. We can't continue to afford it. I need to get healed quickly. And he's like, looks at me, he's like, Mark, that's not how it happens. I said, it is with me. It is with me. And he laughed and he said, well, try this. And 50%, I could feel it. 50% I was healed. I'm like, holy, like I was so in such a bad place. Couldn't take medicine, drink, or do anything. So I just had to, the only thing that gave me peace was sleeping. So I slept. But other than that, it was 24/7. It was so much emotional pain, so much hurt, so much of everything. And so if you're in emotional pain, the whole day, when you're only in emotional pain half a day, you're doing pretty good. You're thinking there's a little respite there. And I felt great. And I came back the next week. I said, this is amazing. I'm like 50% healed. I said, this is so great. And he said, he laughed. And I said, I want the other 50%. He says, Mark, it doesn't happen that way. I said, it does with me. Then he gave me the other 50%. We'll talk about that maybe next week on the podcast. What the two things, would those two things help you to heal? Question is, do you want to heal? See, that's another thing. It's just fascinating. The human brain. People are hurt. They don't want to heal. Anyways, so I'm like, and he told me, and I'm like, I'm healed. He laughs. He said, let me explain how the brain works. I'm like, okay, I'm 22 years old. What do I know? He says, Mark, you went in a week, you went from 100% to 50%. Now you're this. And so your pain is going to come back maybe, once a day, which is better than 24/7, then once a week, and once a month, and then once a year. He says, I don't know. You don't know, but it might never leave you. It might go ahead and come back every 3 to 5 years. And I'm like, really? And he says, yeah, when it comes back, you have to go back to these certain things. So we'll talk about it more. We're going to go into, because again, anything beyond 30 minutes is a gift from you to me to you, and us to one another. We're going to go into a backstage area and have some interesting conversations. That's why you want to participate in the live. Hopefully this is helpful. Pass this along to other people. If nothing else, give something to think about. Like, think about it. Like, just think and then ask questions. Ask your pastor. Pass this along to your pastor. Don't be afraid of your pastor. I mean, he or she says, they say, hey, we're just normal. You can ask any questions, feel safe, and pass it along. Say, what do you think about this? Is this guy a lunatic? Like, right? There's some interesting questions. Why can't we ask questions? Like, why can't we be curious? So if you have any questions, connect with the individual who invited you to participate in today's session, or you can call toll free 888-230-2300, outside the U.S. 630-393-9909. And always remember, we can accomplish so much more together than we ever could on our own. Have an amazing day. Bye-bye.